Elias Acuna here at HeSellsHouses. Welcome to the Friday Night Forum. Again, I'm Elias Acuna. I'm actually a realtor in Hampden County. Been doing this for quite some time, licensed since 2002, and I help people buy and sell houses. The whole point of this Friday Night Forum is an opportunity for people to get together, conversate about the real estate industry, whether you're a buyer, seller, agent. Bring your questions, bring your conversations, and we're open for it. So today I've actually got Arlene Castellano with me. So hello, Arlene.
Hey, how's it going?
It's
Thanks for
going
having me.
good.
I
I know
love your t-shirt, by the way. It could be worse.
it could be worse.
It could be
Very
worse.
much could be worse. This was actually made by Mary Lynn.
Oh,
Three Little Press.
nice.
Yeah.
That's
So if
awesome.
anybody wants a shirt like this, I got the hookup for you. Yeah, I definitely got the hookup. So a little bit about what we're hoping to do here. So throughout the year, we've got a couple different things that we're going to talk about, but today we're actually talking about the Hampden County, the 2020 Hampden County Market Games, or the Hampden County Year in Review, I guess is maybe the better way to put it. So last year was obviously a pretty crazy year with the market, and we wanted to have the opportunity to kind of talk to everybody about it. So first, I'm just going to start right off the bat. First question. I mean, how do you feel now that we've actually done with 2020 and how the market was? And I guess what was your overall experience this year?
Well, I think overall, it was a crazy year for all of us. I did not expect it to get as crazy as it did with everything in general, but with the market itself. I mean, when we first started, when COVID hit, we had a few weeks where we were all scared, and then boom, everything just blew up, and the stats I'm sure are going to prove that.
Yeah, definitely. We had, as you already know, we had a major inventory issue before we even got into COVID.
Mhm.
That was going on for some time, for a couple of years. And once COVID hit, nobody knew what was going to happen, right? We had some people thinking the market was going to crash, everyone was going to, drop out, prices were going to come down, but who knows, right? But then what happened? The market got crazier. Prices kept going up. Inventory was lower. Demand kept getting crazy, crazy, crazy. And we ended up in a situation where we were doing things that I've never seen before in my entire career. Having new strategies, buyers doing new things with offers, ending up in multiple offer situations, 26, 30 offers within a day or two of the houses being on the market. That was craziness, pure and utter craziness is what it was. All right, so two other questions. What was the biggest problem that buyers had last year?
Well, obviously, we talked about it a little bit. Low inventory, um, and uh, the competition was fierce. I mean, it was. I work mostly with first-time home buyers, and the FHA loan is probably the weakest loan out there. And I had success with it in the past, so I had to work on building my buyers up and making them stronger, getting them qualified for the conventional, and making sure they had the cash. And um, I think a lot of agents, if they watch this, will understand, is like, if you ask for closing costs, that kind of just, you're likely not going to qualify, or you're not going to compete with anybody. So
Yeah.
making sure your buyers are as boosted as they could be, and that did mean new strategies and working with lenders. So I think that's the hardest obstacle buyers have. And it was no longer, sleep on it. They see this beautiful house and take the night to think about it. That does not exist anymore. And that's tough. That is a huge thing, especially with me working with first time home buyers. They're scared to begin with. And then you tell them they see a house, they have to put an offer in the next 5 minutes or they're going to miss out. That just blows their mind. And so for me, it was, I had to completely change my game plan in order to get buyers to compete.
Yeah, for that, that same scenario happened a lot with a lot of buyers last year. And I think, the ones that ended up buying were the ones that got to the point where they missed out a couple of times, right? They either they got the picture right away, all right, or they, were so well qualified that they were paying for their own closing cost and then
Yep.
able to go much over that asking price. But it was the ones, that basically adjusted, right? And they ended
Yep.
up with multiple offers, lose out on a couple of houses, and then finally were willing to go ahead and, compete, right? Go ahead and put down what they thought the house was worth. And a lot of the conversations I had with buyers is forget about what the market says, right? A house is worth what you're willing to pay for it.
Mhm.
Really is, right? And once you consider all the value on top of what actually just owning that asset, right? Even if you pay, $200,000 for a house and then you sell it however many years down the line for $200,000, you still live there, right? You had value in the fact that you had a roof over your head. You had value in the fact that you had a place to raise your family, to do all the things that you want to do, and you had to do all those things you want. You didn't have to worry about a landlord kicking you out or pushing you out on the street.
Yep.
And even if you sell your house for less than what you bought it for, there's still value in that, right? And then there's other things. We had buyers who bought properties close to family members. There's value in that. I mean, think about it. How much is somebody willing to pay to go on a vacation? Right? 10,000,
Mhm.
5,000, 10,000. When you're talking about, oh, I don't want to go 5 or 10,000 over the asking price. Well, for that same 10,000 you would have paid on a vacation, you can now secure a property where you can create all those dreams and do all those things that you couldn't necessarily do at another property. So yeah, a lot of buyers kind of went through that self, reflection of figuring
It
out, whether or
yeah,
not
it took a
they're really
few
ready for this.
rejections, yeah, in order
Yeah,
for
yeah,
them to get it. And it's really tough. And I talked about this on Mass Appeal when I did it. It's, telling especially a first time home buyer that they might potentially have to go $20,000 over asking price. It,
yeah,
it was really hard for people to wrap their head around. Why would they give more than the seller put it on the market for?
yeah,
It's like, you're not worried about the seller, you're worried about the competition. And then I had to go into talk about interest rates. They're lower than they ever have been. So when you take that into account and higher prices, I'm like, to me, it kind of balances out compared to 5 years ago.
yeah.
Um,
You end up with this a weird scenario where you could potentially pay more for a house, but pay less on your mortgage, so pay less overall. But I mean, it's not like it's a huge window. But it definitely helps when that rate is so low and people are looking at that mortgage payment and then they realize they can actually afford a little bit more and now they can compete with the fact that the market's been going up.
Yeah. And I
So
think
all
for
right.
us as agents, what we have to ask our clients is what their intention is long term. Are they looking to just stay in this house for a few
Oh,
years? Are they looking, is this your forever house? Because those are two different game plans. And when you figure out what they want, you might, they might buy a house that's they've would quote unquote overpay for it compared to what it's on the market for. They might not get their money back in 3 years, 5 years. Now people are staying in their houses longer because they kind of have to, because
yeah.
they don't want to lose money. So figuring out for other agents what your client's game plan is long term will definitely help you with your strategy with them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's something I talk about all the time with clients. What is your long-term goals?
Yep.
And as you know, we don't just sell houses. We end up becoming therapists, life planners, all those sorts of
No
things. So
kidding.
yeah. So we're having these conversations with them, as you're talking about, what it is that you're looking for, what are your needs versus your wants, and what are your goals? What are you planning? How long do you really plan on being in this house? Is this your stepping stone, or is this the house that, hey, I'm pretty much gonna live the rest of my life here till the end of my days. So, there's a different thought about that. And then you have those same buyers who aren't sure, right? So then, having that conversation, you want to make sure that they then don't just settle if they have a house that's maybe both. That could be the stepping stone. It isn't so crazy where they gotta be there forever. But if, let's say, things didn't work out where they ended up moving on, the house is still sufficient and they know that they're going to be happy there, happy
Yep.
there long term. Yeah, that's nice. All right. So next question. What was the biggest problem that sellers had last year?
The biggest problem that sellers had last year, finding other houses to move to, I would have to say, is they have all the intention to sell their house, but with such a limited market, where the hell are they moving to?
Yeah,
There's
where to go?
that. Yeah, and I think that added to the market itself is, since people didn't have a place to go, they just didn't put their house on the market. They didn't see anything out there that interested them. And you're more of a listing agent than I am, so I mean, you would have more insight onto
Yeah.
what that means.
Yeah, the biggest obstacles I had with sellers this year was finding a place to go. The sellers that had secured something or didn't have to buy in order to sell, those transactions were much easier much, much easier. I mean, in years past, you never had a problem finding a house. There was always plenty of properties available. And, you list the house contingent upon seller finding suitable housing. And, you probably find something within a couple of weeks. Now, you're lucky if you find something right away. And you're kind of in this weird scenario where sometimes you're out trying to find a house before you put your house on the market, but yet there's so many other buyers out there that sellers don't necessarily want to take that contingency contingent upon you selling your house. So it's almost that same scenario with closing costs, where just having that baggage, right,
Yeah.
of having this property to sell, prevents a lot of sellers from wanting to consider, going with your offer, right? So
And
I
Angela Torville said contingencies are a killer right now. And
yeah,
like you're saying, it's, I mean, any kind of contingency.
they definitely are. And actually, I forgot to even completely welcome anybody who wanted to join on. But thank you
Hey, we're new
anybody
to
who
this. This is
is
our first
joining.
time.
I know there's some people joining on. So if you guys have any questions and stuff like that, feel free to toss it up here. We've got some stuff that we've got planned for the hour, but certainly we're leaving it open for people to join in on the conversation. And we actually have our phone numbers up there. If anybody wants to text us instead, especially if you have a property specifically if you want to talk about, you can just go ahead and text that phone number. We're also doing CMAs. If you guys want a CMA on your property, you can text that same number, and we'll get you an estimated price. If not tonight, but tomorrow we'll get you something. So I actually think I mean, that's definitely a huge problem was the sellers finding something. But I think one of the biggest problems sellers had was dealing with so many offers and dealing with the demand just in general, right? So, I mean, one, you list your house and then you've got 50 people trying to get in that same day, right? And then you
Yep.
add the fact that we had COVID going on and people were obviously very concerned about people just entering their house. You know, COVID was going on and we were in a market, 5 or 6 years ago. I don't think we would have felt the same pressure in terms of, how we coordinated or had to coordinate a lot of the showings and the access and stuff like that. But because demand went through the roof, you had this scenario where, the government's telling you, you shouldn't let people in your house. But then your agent's like, well, if you want to sell, you got to let people
You
in your
got
house.
people in it. It's
Right.
true.
So, as we played it, so it's always up to the sellers, obviously, in terms of how they wanted to access. And I did see a lot of people, get creative with doing these scheduled times instead of doing the open houses. That way we can avoid so many people actually showing up at the property. We did have a lot of people defer initial showings so that, it was a lot easier on the owners. They weren't necessarily having to clean or showing it, every other hour for a couple days. Try to condense that, but yet still separate everybody so that everyone had their opportunity to get in there. So that was an issue. And then two, when you got to the offer point, when you had, 25, 30 offers on a house, how do you choose? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times the seller is just thinking, I'll just take the highest offer. But that, as we know, that's not always the best scenario for the seller. So, I think a lot of sellers and even agents too, had a tough time just going through this. I mean, in years past, we'd have, 4 or 5 offers is tough to deal with, just looking at all the details, making sure that you're explaining everything correctly. Now you've got 20 something offers. How do you, line everything up so that the seller can comprehend everything and then make the best choice, right?
Yeah.
So
And I'm
I
going to
think,
throw in there really quick
yeah,
is this now more than ever, the relationship we create as agents are just so important, because when you're competing against 20, 30 offers and you're so close and the agent knows you and they, you have that relationship with them and you're involved, you have an edge over somebody that they don't know and are
yeah,
are on the same level as you with the offer.
yeah, I gotcha. No, I understand. So, I don't know why I can't see all the comments, but if you see any
All
questions,
right, so
somebody
I
asked
do
something
I
about
actually
FHA.
do have a bunch. I have them all, so
Yeah, what you
I
got?
can keep them. All right, so let's see. We have uh Stephanie said, I think this is when we were talking about sellers um selling their house. They have to worry about the value versus the mortgage owed, which I don't think that was as much of an issue this year because people are, paying outrageous prices for houses. But
Yeah,
that's
not as
certainly
many people are
something.
underwater. Not as many
Yeah,
people are
they're
underwater. That's what it is.
yeah. I haven't really run into any houses at this point where they had deferred mortgages or anything like that. So I'm not sure of what that impact would be for somebody that has a deferred mortgage. They're trying to sell their house, um, and if they owe, the full price. I don't know what your experience is with that. Um, Dealing your mom, Maria Acuna, said dealing with multiple offers. I
Yep.
think that's both on seller side and buyer side, what we were talking about.
Yeah.
And I mean, they both have their pros and cons on either side. Um, your dad said learning how to hold the iPads correctly. I think in general, if you're not used to technology, figuring that out is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then Angela trying to get her clients as ready as best they can with no contingencies
Yeah.
and conventional financing, which is
Yeah.
huge.
It's huge. It's
Um,
huge. I mean, we've, don't get me wrong. We're still doing FHA. We're still doing closing costs, but it's certainly, again, it's that additional baggage that buyers end up with, right? And,
yep.
sellers are looking for something really clean. And most of the time, when we've been able to get the seller, to accept, the FHA or the contingent or the closing cost credit, it's typically, there's not as many offers on the house, right? So there's less competition at that point, or and obviously they wouldn't necessarily be a ton of offers. The house has been on for a little bit longer, right? So as we know, if there's something in this market doesn't sell within the first week, it's likely the condition or the price, right? It's the condition or the price. And the
You're giving
word
it
that
a
they,
week. I'm giving it like 3 days on the market.
yeah,
If it's not selling,
yeah.
it's
Well,
no
let's say
good.
you deferred the showings to that weekend,
All right,
sell it
yeah,
in a
yeah.
couple of days,
I'll
hey, you
give you
never know,
that.
right? But it's certainly, we're in a situation where the more qualified you are and the more things you can reduce that the seller's going to have a concern about, the increased chance of success you're going to have, right?
Yeah.
So I actually was just talking to some buyers last night. We made an offer on a house today that the closing costs, they're asking for closing costs again, but that's the scenario that they're in, and we're going to go ahead and fight for it, and hopefully we'll get it, right?
Hopefully.
We've made a pretty strong offer, and we've adjusted ourselves on other terms in order to try to increase our chances of success. So it's not just that closing cost. If you got all these contingencies, agents, you should be contacting the listing agent to find out, well, what else is the seller, what else is important to the seller,
Yep.
right? Maybe it's a closing date. Are they looking for a specific closing date? Are there certain terms that they want? What is it that the seller has a concern about other than price? I mean, most of the time, 99% of the time it's going to be price, but there are some sellers who will take an offer that's less because of, other factors that are written in an offer. And how are you going to know what those factors are unless you ask? Right. And the worst is that you get, I don't really know, or you get a no or whatever, but without asking, you're not even going to find
I mean, as
out.
an agent, the first thing I do if my buyer's interested, I call the agent and I'm like, what do you want? How many offers are there? That's the first question. What do they want? And if there's anything that I should know, and if they say, they're looking to close early, I talk to the lender and see if it's possible. First of all, don't just make promises that you can't keep. And then hope for the best. I do a lot of praying. I hope a lot. So we got a question from Stephanie, which I think we kind of answered. What's been the biggest problems with FHA in the market?
Condition. Yeah, but I've been getting over that by talking to the buyer and offering to do the work.
Yep.
If an FHA issue comes up that's, non-major, obviously we're not replacing a roof, but if we're talking about handrails, maybe even a broken window, chipping paint, stuff like that, I'll talk to the buyer about it. And, I'll tell the buyer, hey, if you really want to compete, sellers are taking conventional loans over FHA because they're concerned about conditional issues. So if you can alleviate that concern for the sellers, boom, you're on the same level now as a conventional buyer.
Yeah. And I think as agents, for people that are looking for an agent, is find somebody that really understands FHA in the market. So when I walk through a house with an FHA buyer, which is most of the time, I'm looking for things like peeling paint, the handrails, and I'm like, everything I see looks pretty minor. And worst case scenario, if you can't take care of it, I will shell out a few bucks and I'll get it done for you. I mean, I'm
I've
not seriously, we've done that. You know, we've done that.
I've painted a
And
couple windows.
we paint it. We'll come out on a weekend. We'll scrape and paint some windows to get it done. But as agents, we need to be able to point some major things out. Obviously, we can't pick everything out, but that is also, making sure our clients understand that, there are things that we have to look for.
Yeah.
And there might be, the house might not be for them because of their FHA loan, and we don't want them to waste their time or money.
Yeah,
To find out.
I I don't want to say over exaggerate, but I overemphasize those issues with the buyer, right?
Yes.
These could
Mhm.
potentially be issues, right? But when, on the selling side, you try to make it as pleasing as possible. Yeah, there's not much
Yeah.
going on, and it's probably going to pass. It's only a little bit. And actually, quite frankly, this is true. There's actually been several houses this year or last year that I sold that I was expecting issues, chipping paint, missing handrails, holes in walls, pulled up flooring. And I'm like,
They don't call them.
I negotiated repairs and then didn't get called. And I'm like,
Yep.
very surprised, very surprised. But as you know, it's opinion. The next house shows up and there's a little tiny piece of, torn wallpaper, and all of a sudden you got to re-wallpaper
Oh
the
my
whole
God,
house.
my first sale ever was delayed 3 weeks for a door handle. And it was like, and then I have other houses where a wall's falling down and it's
Yeah,
FHA and they don't call it. So you
no,
never know. And that's another point is every appraisal is different. So you never know. We never know. We can only guess. And
yeah,
we try to just give you a heads up as buyers,
yeah.
even sellers, on what could potentially be a problem. But, and how about last year? There was a point where appraisers weren't even going in houses.
Yeah.
So how were they determining, what the heck's going on? So I think a lot of things really slipped through the cracks because of it,
No, that is true. You know what I
which I
just
guess
realized?
benefited both. Let's see. What else we got here? Oh, your abuela's watching, so say hola.
Hola. I
Hola.
just realized I
Um,
was named wrong. I just renamed myself.
let's see. So Angela says a strong pre-qual matters, which I mean, there's a difference between a pre-qualification and a pre-approval. And we want pre-approvals. When I talk to a buyer and I talk to a lender, I want to know if documentation has been submitted. Is this just a call and they're like, here's my income, here's some debt, and so
Yeah,
there's a difference between those.
there is, but the language has changed. Some lenders are just using a blanket, what's called pre-qual, but they're
Yeah.
actually verifying the information, which is more of what we would traditionally consider a pre-approval. But really, like you said, the point is, did you actually check the credit, or did you
Yep.
just go based on what you were told?
Yep.
Did you check the income? Did you check the stuff? And certainly, I see a lot of sellers, especially again, these multiple offer situations, and especially with COVID, they wanted to see pre-approvals that were within the last couple of days
Yep.
sometimes,
That's
because
true.
their concern was whether or not you were still going to be continued to be employed. Is that verified? So I think lenders are getting a lot better about doing those sorts of things, but there's still a couple out there that may not necessarily have the same level of preparedness, or same level of readiness for that buyer once they actually get that letter. So all right,
We have
let's go
we have a
to,
couple other questions real quick
what do
if
you got?
you want to go through them, or
What was the other question? I
all
see
right.
right here. More houses. So yeah, we'll talk about that when we talk about the predictions. I had my name under my dad, Tim. It was my dad. All right, so let's talk about the Hampden County market area review. So I actually got a whole bunch of all sorts of stuff here. Talk about the market. But as you know, craziness.
Let me
Sellers
drink.
market.
Let me take a sip before we talk about this.
Do I even need to say or to start off by saying it was a seller's market in 2020? Probably not, right? But just to give you an idea of what we're dealing with. So last year, and this is actually based on the MLS PIN numbers, and this is for Hampden County. And I pulled these, and these are as of December 31st, 2020. So it's not the current numbers as of today. Again, just what we ended the year off with. Listing units taken throughout the whole year, Hampden County, 4,882. Year before that, 2019, we were at 5,300 or just over 5,300. So less houses obviously came on the market.
What's the percentage difference on that? Do you know?
You're gonna ask me to do
Oh,
math right off the top of my head?
no, it's all right.
um, listing units,
We
houses
good.
that actually went pending. Now, this is very interesting, right? So we had less houses that came available, right? Houses that went pending, 4,721. Now, the year before, that was 4,649. So less houses came on the market, but yet more houses went under contract. Does that make sense? All right. So again,
Do you think people are,
ridiculously high demand.
it is, do you think people are compromising on what they really want in a house just to own a property?
I think some buyers are. Well, I wouldn't say compromising.
I wouldn't compromise. Yeah, this doesn't seem like the wrong word, but you know what I mean, right?
I think buyers are really reflecting on what's important. What are the needs?
What's important? Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
What is my need versus what are my wants? You know, and that's a big conversation I have with a lot of buyers: needs versus wants. Do you need a 4-car garage, or do you just want the 4-car garage? It's true. And especially in today's market, because there's such low inventory, you've got to widen your net as much as possible. So if you get really specific about that one specific thing, I want 4 bedrooms, 4 baths, 4-car garage, like, okay, maybe there's one house that might come on this year that'll fit that. You widen that up, go a little bit less on the baths, half bath instead of a full bath. Maybe they can add that. Maybe there's a finished room for a basement. Maybe there's another area that could be adjusted to fit their needs, or maybe you could add the garage on if you really need it, right? All right, so this is another interesting one. Houses that actually did a price reduction last year. So in 2019, 1,871 houses did a price reduction. Last year, only 1,125 people ended up having to drop the price on their house. So again, houses are selling
That's
faster,
legit.
selling stronger. Sellers are getting closer to their asking price. They're having to adjust less than what they had to do in years past. Houses actually sold. Now, 2019, 4,240. Now, I actually was thinking this number would be a lot different. Houses sold in 2020, 4,215. That's not a huge difference. So very close to the same number of houses actually sold. And again, shows you that there's just ridiculously high demand because of that. Average days on the market went down. So from 2019, we were at 61 days. In 2020, we were down to 46 days on the market. The average sale price in Hampden County was up. In 2019, we were at 234,000. At the end of 2020, Hampden County average sale price was $260,000, or over 260. The average price per square foot was up from 145 up to 160. And then the average sale price as a percent of the listing price. So the average sale price as a percent of the listing price in 2019, sellers were getting 98.92% of their listing price. In last year, the average seller got 100.48% of their listing price.
Wow, that's insane.
Now that is a different from original asking price, because that includes sellers that made that adjustment before they got the accepted offer. But as you know, there were some sellers that dropped that price and then ended up over the drop price because the price drop triggered multiple offers, right? So then you ended up back over that price. So that's why you have that over 100%. Now, approximate months supply of inventory and the absorption rate. So month supply of inventory was down to 0.8. Now, I know you know what this means, but I'm going to explain this just to make sure that anybody who's on understands what I'm talking about when I say month supply of inventory. So basically what you do is you figure out how many houses sold over a particular time period. And the way MLS does it, it's like a rolling 30 days. So it's like the last 30 days. Now this figure is as of December 31st. So it would have been the 30 days prior. How many houses sold divided by the number of houses were actually available. Okay. And it tells you, assuming no new listings show up today on the market, or that going forward, how long will it take for the remaining houses to sell? All right. So as of December 31st, if no new listings came on the market, we were at 0.8 months, which means it would take, 0.8 months, less than 4 weeks for everything to be gone. It'd be gone, right? Now, another way to look at this is they flip this as a percentage, and that's what's called the absorption rate. So the absorption rate right now is 124.65%. And so what that means, and when it's under 100%, it's really easy. If we had a 50% absorption rate, it's really easy to understand, because you say, well, the absorption rate is what percentage houses are going to sell this month based on the demand. Well, a 50% absorption rate means about 50% of the market's going to sell. 50% of the market's going to get absorbed by those buyers. Over 100% it's hard to understand, because basically what you're saying is all the houses plus, more than what's even available is going to sell, which is odd to think. But what it is just to drive in the point in terms of how strong that demand is right now. When you compare this to years in the past, again, we ended the year at 0.8 months. The year before, we were at 1.63 months. That was in 2019, which was already a problem. 2018, we ended at 2.21. 2017, we were at the same thing, just over 2 months. So we were already experiencing lack of inventory. Now we're even worse. Now, seller's market, buyer's market. This is the tool that we use to determine that, this months of supply of inventory. And as you know, typically, and it's a little bit of opinion here. A lot of people draw 6 months at the, middle of the line. Anything above 6 months is a buyer's market. Anything below is a seller's market. Some people really say it's more 4 to 6 is like an even market. But really the whole point is, the more months of supply you have, the more of a buyer's market it is. And the less months of supply you have, the more of a seller's market it is, right? So you really can't say, well, this is how much of a market it is, but you could compare it to other years. And when you consider, again, that at 4 months, we would have been talking about a, seller's advantage. We have less than a month's worth of homes available for all these people to actually buy. Right. And it's a serious problem, definitely a serious problem. So some other highlights. So that was all of Hampden County. I'm just going to pull some highlights from some of the other towns. So, Agawam, absorption rate, 0.83 months. Again, they were at less than 0.83 and ended the year with the average price of $272,000. Blandford, average price ended at $273,000. Brimfield, average price ended up at $290,000. Again, these are all increases from years prior. Chester, $213,000. Chicopee had an over 100% absorption rate. Right now, they have a 1 month supply of inventory in Chicopee. 372 houses sold in Chicopee last year, about the same from what the year before, but houses are selling faster, down to 41 days, on the market. Another town that's 100% over the the listing price. And this town at Chicopee specifically is also over 100% when it comes to percent of the original asking price. So when you're talking about including the people that drop their price, and that means these houses are selling so far above that original list asking price that we're coming up at 100.45% is what sellers in Chicopee are getting on an average. You ask a price, you're going to get more than that on average in Chicopee. East Longmeadow, the absorption rate of East Longmeadow is at 147% right now, 0.68 months of supply. Price up to $338 from $281 the year before. Granville, 1.5 months of supply right now. Hampden, days on the market's down by 35 days, from 98 to 64. Houses are selling way faster than what they were before, from 282 up to an average price of $325,000. Holland's down to 0.63 months supply of inventory. Holyoke, 0.7 months supply of inventory. That's 126% absorption rate. Their average sale price right now is $233,000. Longmeadow, 0.82 months supply of inventory. That's 122% absorption rate. Their average price is up to over $400,000. Ludlow, average price from $252 up to $271, almost a $20,000 increase in a year. Munson, that's where I'm living now. Average sale price from $256 to $287. Days on the market from 72 down to 58. let's see here. Montgomery had a 40%. This was an interesting one. In this town, this is a town that doesn't have much sales typically. It's a small town, anyways. They had a 40% increase in the number of houses that sold in 1 year. So that's a
Wow.
huge increase. Palmer, 105% absorption rate, less than a month supply of inventory. Average price was up over 30 grand last year from the year before. Russell, houses, 50% more houses sold than the year before. Southwick, average sale price from 309 up to 317, again, increase there. Springfield, this is where the most sales happen, obviously, in Hampden County. Springfield, the absorption rate over 150%, 0.66 months supply of inventory at the end of December. Closed units over 1261. Average days on the market down to 38. And the average sale price went from 175 over $200,000 right now in Springfield. Another area where that percent of listing price, 101.78% of the asking price is what they're getting, right? Craziness.
I remember when I first started in Springfield, the average day on the market was like 126 days was when I first started. That's a huge difference to what, 30 something days?
Yeah.
Is it? Oh my gosh.
And
wow.
demand. Supply. It's very simple. Very simple.
Yeah.
Supply and demand. You know, the not enough houses, the cost of buildings, gone up. So people weren't building. That got slowed down. And then you had this pent up demand for the last couple of years. You added what happened last year, which seemed to increase demand. And it's just, a recipe for craziness. Tolland, 1.41 month supply of inventory. Wales, this is crazy. 0.4 month supply. That's a 250% absorption rate. I was saying that over 100% was hard to understand. 250% absorption rate. There's not enough houses anywhere, especially in Wales, apparently. The average listing price went from 183 to 236. That's a $50,000 increase. 1 year.
That's crazy.
It is. West Springfield, 0.64 months supply, 155% absorption rate. Average sale price to 238 to 255. Westfield, 122% absorption rate, 0.82 months supply of inventory. Wilbraham, less than half a month supply in Wilbraham, 207.29% on the absorption rate at the end of December. The average sale price from 304 up to 343. Absolute craziness. So I don't know what to tell you in terms of what's gonna happen this year, but there's certainly, it's certainly, hey, it could be worse, right? It could be worse.
We have Stephanie here saying she's surprised that the market skyrocketed during the time and change in the economy.
It's true. Well, and I mean, I'm not an economist, right? I'm not an expert when it comes to running, the world economy and, everyone losing their jobs and how that actually affects everything. But from what I can see, it seems to me that a lot of the people that were in the market to buy already weren't affected, when it came to job loss. It seemed to me that a lot of the people that were affected weren't necessarily at that point yet where they were going to be able to get into a house, right? Or they were getting ready to get into a house. And maybe this is going to cause an issue down the line where all those buyers who would have been getting ready within the next year or two, they're going to be pushed farther down. But as you saw, it seemed to me that the only slow that I saw this year wasn't from a ton of people losing jobs. It was from more concern about getting out there, people just putting on the brakes. I mean, we did have a number of deals fall apart, once this first broke. We did have some buyers who lost jobs. We had some people who had gotten sick. So certainly, deals were affected. But in terms of the overall number of buyers out there, I really think that most of those buyers weren't, I guess, in that segment that was really affected. you know. And I don't
And
know
of
how
the
that really works, you know.
Yeah, and of the people that weren't affected, I think a lot of them realized that if they were renting, they needed their own space. They wanted their own house with everything going on. And they may have been living with family, and they're like, you know what, we're all cooped up. I want a house.
Yep.
The social distancing and being home all the time drives people a little crazy. So they wanted their own place, and I think that increased sales in itself.
No. All right. So here's the 100% club. All right. So we went over all those absorption rates. So there are how many? There's 23 towns and cities in Hampden County. How many do you think ended the year with an over 100% absorption rate?
How many towns are there?
23. Right? 23.
14.
Right? You think 14? Oh, you said
No,
14?
I did. Is it? Rub it in. What was it?
Your dad said 12.
3,
Stephanie
4,
said
5,
16.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. The answer is 13. 13.
Off
Now,
by one.
off by
Your
one.
dad was off by one.
Yeah, so in the 100% club for absorption rate, 13 different areas. Now, the top one was Wales at 250%. I mean, who knew that the Wales was going to be the center of leading the Hampden County market? But there's a lot of demand everywhere. And you know what? And part of this is actually because of COVID, we saw a lot of people going outside of the city. So we did see a higher demand in some of the more rural areas. And that's probably partially why we saw that in areas like that. All right. So percent to listing price. How many towns or cities had an average percent of the accepted offer over the listing price? You understood what I said?
Yeah, well, I did anyway. What else? What we got? Give us some guesses. Give us some guesses out there.
All of them.
All of them.
All of them.
She might not be wrong. I'm going low for some reason.
What's your answer?
All right, we got Stephanie said 13. Oh, no. We need another guess out there. Kristen says all of them. We have 2 of you with all of them.
Well, the answer is 8.
Oh,
8.
I was still close. I'm going to take that as a win. Almost all of them. Your dad said.
So the highest leading the pack is Springfield, 101.78%. So Springfield was the highest in terms of what you're going to get per your asking price. All right. So actually, I got a couple other games. Let's play some games actually, and then we'll do predictions. You got time?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
As long as you got sound effects, I got time.
All right. Well, I got sound effects.
All right, let's do this.
Hold on. All right, folks. So this is the market games. So these are questions based on houses that have actually sold in Hampden County last year. I've got 10 questions, actually 20, but 10 plus you got to figure out the towns or areas that these properties sold in. So
all right.
The first question is, what was the most number of bedrooms sold in a house in Hampden County last year? And obviously, which town was it in? Now, I'll give you 3 choices. Was it 7, 9, or 12?
And by the way, I don't know any of these answers. We didn't go over this, so I'm guessing with y'all.
But typically, we didn't go over this.
We did not go over this, so I am guessing 7. I'm gonna guess 7. Probably wrong. Watch it be like a mansion with like 12 houses, 12 rooms. We have Carrie saying 7. Your mom said 9. Stephanie 7. 9. Maria.
Yes,
I love when she
9.
does that. I want to hear that right now.
Yeah, there was actually 2 houses. There was actually 2 properties that sold with 9 bedrooms in them. Now, you want to guess which city or town that was in?
Long Meadow.
Yeah, that's exactly what my parents thought the other day too when I said that. It could be right. I'm just saying that's exactly what my parents thought.
I feel like I'm wrong when you said it that way. I feel like I'm wrong. Can I change my guess?
All right, so
Wales. Let's just throw Wales in there.
No, it was actually in Springfield. Yes,
Springfield.
People forget Springfield's got some big houses in some areas. We've got some.
Wait, are we including multifamilies?
Oh, this single families only. Single families only.
Oh, okay.
Single families only. Yeah. We don't multis would get crazy. Single families. All right, next one. What was the most square footage in a house last year? Was it 55,284, 6,225, or 6,624?
I'm gonna say the last one there, the 6,000.
624?
Yeah.
You sure that's what you're going for?
Apparently I'm wrong again because the way you said it. You sure that's what you're going for?
You're winning on this one. So yes, it was 6,624. It was a property sold in Hampden. I know, I didn't even ask you where, did I?
Hampden.
It was in
I said Long Meadow.
Yep. Next one. All right, largest lot. All right, and we'll go by acres. 70.5 acres, 90 acres, or 120.6 acres.
I'm gonna let the crowd go in on this one. What we got? Uh-oh.
What's the answer, folks?
120 point. I'm gonna have to go with Carrie.
All right. Hold on here.
Oh.
70.5 acres. 70.5 acres.
And where was this?
Where, you want to take a guess? Or you want me to tell you?
Where it's not in Springfield because I don't see that happening.
April's guessing.
I'm gonna go with Wales.
No, it was actually in Palmer.
Oh,
Palmer. That still works. All right. Oldest house that sold in Hampden County. Was it built in 1714, 1746, or 1771? The oldest house I ever sold was 1762. So these, or 2 of these would
1746.
You going with 1746?
1714, Carrie says.
Well,
Anybody else? 1746 from Stephanie.
Well, Carrie, you are correct. It is actually 1714. It was actually a house that sold in Long Meadow.
Oh, your dad said Long Meadow.
Yeah, that's because I told him this the other day.
Oh, that's cheating, Al. That's not cool.
I gave him like 2 questions. All right.
And he put a question mark, like he was questioning this. Nice try. We got.
Well, he didn't want to give it away, you know.
You don't want to give it away.
All right. This is an interesting one. Most garage stalls.
Ooh, I mean, the most I think I've ever seen was like 4. So I probably more than that.
let me give you some choices, I guess. 6,
Uh,
8, or 10.
so I'm off. Yeah. So 8. I'm gonna say 8. Let's see.
The answer.
Wait, let's see if anybody has guesses. So it's 6, garage stalls, 6, 8, or what?
10.
Or 10. Any guesses? Any guesses out there? 8.
It's 8.
Your mom, Carrie says 8.
It
It's
was
8.
8. Yeah. So they had an 8-stall garage.
Dang it. Ding,
and
ding,
they
ding,
had
ding, ding.
20 additional off-street parking spots.
Off-street parking.
Yes.
Where?
Do you want to take a guess where it was?
Longmeadow.
Palmer.
Freaking Palmer, man.
Palmer got the largest lot and the biggest garage.
Wow. We're going there. We're going to that house for a party. Social distance.
All right. Smallest house. 237 on the square footage, 389 square feet, or 447 square feet. What was the smallest?
447, I'm guessing.
April saying there's no way it's smaller.
I'm like, can they even make a house to code that small? Like,
What are they? The small house?
It was 447. 447.
Yeah.
Actually,
Nice.
I'm pretty sure it was a lake house in Southwick. So 447.
Wow.
Highest price.
Okay, wait, is that considered a tiny house? Can we call it
I don't think it is actually.
House? No.
Highest price, 990,000, 1.1 million, or 1.6 million.
I don't know what other people guess here first. What were the numbers again? 900 and
990, 1.1, and 1.6.
anybody got out there? Lowest price. Anybody?
It's actually you got it, 13.
I did. Carrie said 13.
Yep, 13.
I wonder what condition this house was in.
I mean, I just sold a lot for 15. I think the cheapest house we've ever done was a house. No, it was a lot for $8,000. I think that's the lowest sale I've ever had.
I get lots, but this had a house on it. This was a house. Wow.
It was a dilapidated.
It was a dump,
house.
and they flipped the hell out of it.
Yeah.
The land probably cost more than that.
And that was in Wales. That one.
They're gonna make some bank on that house.
I'm sure the price has gone up $50,000 in a year.
Yeah. They could
All
put
right,
$10 on that house and
the most
that.
the most bathrooms in a house. 4, 6, or 8. Remember the
April
most
says
bedrooms.
8. I'm going 6.
Yeah, most bedrooms was 9. So hopefully you going with 6?
I'm going with 6.
Let's see what anybody
What else?
else-
What else we got out there?
My dad said
8, 8, 6, 8.
The answer is
Carrie said 8.
6.
6.
6.
Woo! Stephanie's got
Yeah, it
6.
actually had 5 full bathrooms and then a half bath.
I want to hear that ding, 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 ding. Make it happen.
Did I not? You know what it is? I turned the volume down on it.
There it is. You feel like a winner, don't you?
So, most rooms in a house: 18, 23, or 28.
Most what?
Most rooms in a house.
What did you? How many
18.
rooms? 8.
18, 23, or 28.
Oh, most rooms. I'm thinking bedrooms. I'm like, what kind of
Oh.
places are we talking about? 28.
Gee, 28.
It felt wrong saying it.
18. It was 18.
18.
18 rooms, and it was in Hampden. 18-room house that sold.
Your sister says whatever my brother says is final answer. We know this. We know this.
All right. So okay, so that's those market games. We got some other stuff, but you know what? Let's just move into the predictions. That way we can, I guess, start wrapping up in a little bit. So the predictions that I had, well, one, what are your overall expectations for the next year? What do you think is going to happen in the market? More of the same, more
Talking to me?
craziness? Yeah, yeah, I'm talking to you.
You talking to me?
Maybe
I
maybe
predict more tears. I
a
predict
little
more tears
relief.
from buyers.
More
I
tears.
predict more tears from buyers. I predict, I mean, especially as hopefully things start to get better and people feel more comfortable selling and people letting people in their house, I hope the market opens up a little bit, but I don't see a decrease in demand of buyers. So I foresee this being a heavy seller's market for quite some time.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's very basic supply
In
and
demand, yeah.
so unless either A, the supply drastically increases, or B, the demand drastically drops out, you just can't have any other option at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I definitely think we're going to be seeing much more of a seller's market. I am hoping, or I'm hopeful, that the sellers that didn't sell last year, excuse me, that the sellers that didn't sell last year will have more confidence this year, because we did have a number of people who, again, were getting ready at that spring and they delayed themselves. And anybody who was trying to do that switch over the summer because of the school, they put on the brakes all the way, right? Because they, we were delayed in March into spring. Then there was like, by the time summer came around, it was too crazy to sell a house for some people. So, I'm hoping that, this spring we're gonna get some more inventory. I mean, I don't know how much more you can really expect. My hope is that we're going to see more new construction going on. I am starting to see some people listing some properties. I mean, if you got land, you've got land